It's on YouTube. Okay. Oh, is that Aunt Edie over there? Oh, okay, that's exciting. Elliot, is that you, Mr. Mendel?
Yes, it is.
Okay, it's wonderful to hear your voice. And hello, Mrs. Levy.
For some reason, my video won't turn on.
Okay, well, I see your name, so your name makes me think of your face, and I know what you look like. Marcia, are you there? What? Miss Willie? Willie is there?
Yeah.
Hello,
They're
Willie?
coming on.
Okay. I don't see Marcia. Ah, Marcia, you there? Okay. Why do they have red?
That's mute. That's at the muted.
But they're muted from their end?
I'll mute everyone. You can both unmute themselves if you want.
Okay, you could unmute Mrs. Eiserman if you can. Know a way to do that. Okay. Okay, Mrs. Eiserman?
Yep, I'm here.
Ah, okay, very good. So it's unfortunately I can't be there live, but it's wonderful to see everybody as much as I could see everybody. Like I told Mr. Mendel, even when I just see your name, I know your faces. So it's good to be back. It's good to be seeing. Ah, hello. So it's good to be seeing everybody as much as we can during this difficult time. So all right, I guess let's get started. So as I mentioned in the title of the share, even though this is our Tehillim share, but I'm not going to be focusing on Tehillim tonight. Instead, I'm going to try and address recent events and try to give a little bit of a what it's my perspective, which I hope is a Torah perspective on what's been going on recently, what our outlook on it should be, what possibly we could learn from it. So the first thing that we have to realize is, and this is obvious, I'm not saying any great chidushim here, clearly we're living through historical times. It's when I hear about these chasanas that are taking place in driveways and in backyards. So I commented to my wife the other day, I said, 30 years from now, there's going to be a child who's going to be looking at an album and they're going to say, how come you don't have a chasana album like everybody else, like all your friends had? How come it looks so different? And they're going to say, oh, it was a COVID-19 chasana. So this is it's a time period that the kids and the grandkids are going to be looking back on, and they're going to refer to it, and they're going to say, wow, what were you doing then? Wow, Deborah, it's good to see you. They're going to say, what were you doing then? What was it like? What could you tell us about it? Hello, Uncle Gabe, it's good to see you. So it's definitely historical times, and we have to take a serious look at it, and we have to try to learn from it whatever we can. Now, somebody made a comment to me way back when this was starting, and he said, at least back in the days when we had Nevi'im, we had a Navi who could come and who could tell us, why the Ribbono Shel Olam is doing this? You know what the Ribbono Shel Olam wants? And the Navi would fill in the knowledge gaps. The Navi would tell us what it is that the Ribbono Shel Olam is asking from us. But now we don't have the Nevi'im. We don't have that insight. And my comment back was, the reason we don't have Nevi'im is, if you want to see how effective Nevi'im are, take a look and learn Yirmiyah. And Klal Yisrael wasn't always exceptionally good at listening to what the Nevi'im had to say. But the Ribbono Shel Olam doesn't play games with us. The knowledge is there. And if we look hard and we think and we're introspective, each and every one of us can take a look at the situation and we can find the things that we need to address. And as a society, I believe as well, we have the ability to look at the situation and think it through and realize what it is that the Ribbono Shel Olam wants from us. What's the Ribbono Shel Olam asking? Now, the first question that people ask is a very simplistic one. They want to know, why is this happening? Why is the Ribbono Shel Olam doing this? And could we clearly know the answer? Maybe in 2020 hindsight, maybe when we're past this, maybe with the gift of hindsight, we'll have a clearer answer. But certainly we have to look now and see what we can see. And I think that in a certain way, we may have to change our perspective on it a little bit, and I'll tell you what I mean. And before I say anything else, I just want to be clear. In no way am I minimizing the suffering that so many people are going through when I say what I'm about to say. But the default position that most people have when they look at this is to ask, why is the Ribbono Shel Olam bringing such a terrible einish upon us? Why is the Ribbono Shel Olam treating us so harshly? Why is the Ribbono Shel Olam being so hard on us? And together with that perspective comes the idea where we're looking at the Ribbono Shel Olam as a very vengeful punisher. We're looking at the Ribbono Shel Olam as the tough guy. We're looking at the Ribbono Shel Olam as the one who's munning, and the one who's being hard, and the one who's being tough. But we have to remember that that's not who the Ribbono Shel Olam is. The Ribbono Shel Olam is an Av Haracham. The Ribbono Shel Olam is a father. The Ribbono Shel Olam is merciful. The Ribbono Shel Olam has great love for every single one of us. So when we look at this, we have to look at it through the eyes of realizing that the Ribbono Shel Olam is a Rachman, the Ribbono Shel Olam is a Meitiv, the Ribbono Shel Olam wants to do good for us, and that the Ribbono Shel Olam loves us. Now, having said that, so how do we then look at this situation through those eyes? How do we look at this as love? How do we look at this as rachamim? Well, let me give you a little bit of a parallel. You know, by Golus Mitzrayim, the Golus got worse before the Golus got better. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim and he went to Paroi and said, "Let my people go," the Golus got harder. Paroi turned around and Paroi said, "I'm not giving them cash anymore. Now go around Mitzrayim and find your own cash." And let me tell you something. When the Noiksim of the Mitzrim, when the Mitzrim taskmasters came and they beat the Shoitrei Yisrael, it hurt. It didn't tickle. People suffered. But that was a necessary prelude for the Geula. Before the Geula was able to happen, first the Shibud had to get worse. Now, in the context of Golus Mitzrayim, why was it that way? Perhaps at that time it was that way because the Ribbono Shel Olam had to make it abundantly clear that the only thing that was going to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim was the Ribbono Shel Olam b'chvaydai ba'atzmai. It wasn't going to be Moshe Rabbeinu's pull. It wasn't going to be Moshe Rabbeinu's influence because he grew up in the house of Paroi. So first Moshe Rabbeinu had to come and the Shibud had to get worse. So Klal Yisrael looked and said, wow, we thought we had an inside track. We thought we had some pull. Nope, that's not going to work. The Shibud just got worse. And then the Ribbono Shel Olam brought the Geula. So we had pain and suffering that was a direct prelude to the Geula. I would like to think that what we're going through now is also a prelude to Geula. The Ribbono Shel Olam is definitely coming now, and the Ribbono Shel Olam is doing things that are unprecedented, and the Ribbono Shel Olam very likely is training us. The Ribbono Shel Olam is looking at us, and the Ribbono Shel Olam is saying, look, there is something that I want. There is an improvement that I'm looking for. There are things that I want you to think about. And maybe from that thinking and from that growth, maybe Baruch Hashem, we're Zoche to Geula Shlema. If at the time of Mitzrayim, the people would have known, if the Shotrim, if the officers of Klal Yisrael, when they were getting beaten by the Mitzrim taskmasters, if they would have known that every one of those lashes is a prelude to Ula, if they would have known that because they're suffering from those lashes, they were going to be Zoche to become the Zikanim, because that's who became the Ziknei Ha'am. They were the Zikanim that led Klal Yisrael together with Moshe Rabbeinu and Yeshua. And Chazal tell us it was because of the schus that they were beaten and helped and tried to protect the Yidden as much as they could. If they would have known that that suffering was a prelude to that, it would have been a lot easier to accept. we also have to look at this and we have to say that this is being meted out to us by an Av Harachamim, by somebody who loves us. And how much does he love us? How much does the Rebbeinu Shalom love us? I always like to quote from the Chovos HaLevavos. The Chovos HaLevavos, when he talks about the Rebbeinu Shalom's love for us, what does he say? Sha'haboyre yisparach merachem ala adam yoser mikol merachem. The Rebbeinu Shalom has more rachmanus on a person. The Rebbeinu Shalom has greater mercy and greater compassion for a yid, yoser mikol merachem, more than any other merciful person. The Rebbeinu Shalom's mercy is boundless. V'loy oid, and not only that, he says any rachmanus that exists in the world only comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom. And later on, the Chovos HaLevavos points out, he says everything, all, where is it here? He says the Rebbeinu Shalom's love for us is boundless. He knows everything that we need better than we know ourselves. Like this, a person thinks that he knows what he needs. Person doesn't know what he needs. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows your situation better than you do. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows all your needs better than you do. And the Chovos HaLevavos points this out. He says you can't measure the ava, the love, and the compassion and the care that the Rebbeinu Shalom has for every one of us. I always like to say over from Rav Twersky, Rabbi Avram Twersky, he said a beautiful word on Berachas HaShachar. He says if you look at the Berachas HaShachar, there's one bracha that's different from all the rest. We make a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Pekeach Ivrim. We thank the Rebbeinu Shalom who opened our eyes and gave us sight. But we make that bracha in Lashon Avar. We make that bracha in the past tense. The Rebbeinu Shalom opened our eyes. Or in Hoiva, Pekeach Ivrim, he opens our eyes. Sha'asa li kol tzarki. Sha'asa li, I'm sorry. All of the brachas we make in the Hoiva. Sha'asa, in the present tense. Sha'asa li kol tzarki is in the past tense. Why is that? Why is this bracha in the past tense? So he gives a beautiful answer that answered a question that I often struggled with. And that is, every single yid makes a bracha every morning and thanks Hashem, Sha'asa li kol tzarki, who made me everything that I need. Now let me ask you a question. You have an ani meduka, you have a pauper who has a family and doesn't know where his next meal is coming from. And his wife and kids are crying that they need food. How does he make a bracha and thank Hashem, Sha'asa li kol tzarki, who made me everything that I need? I don't have everything that I need. I don't know where lunch is coming from. I don't know where supper is coming from. What do you mean I'm thanking Hashem that he made everything that I need? I don't see it. Where is it? But the answer is that is precisely what that person needs at that time. The Rebbeinu Shalom, in his divine and infinite wisdom, knows that is precisely what that person needs at that time, for whatever reason. Sometimes you're zeicha to see it 10 years later. Sometimes 10 years later, you look back at a situation and you say, now I understand why the Rebbeinu Shalom put me through that tzara at that time. Now I see why I needed it. Now I see what I learned from it. A simple example would be the person who loses his job. And it's a terrible tzara, he lost his job. But then because he lost that job, he switches careers, he goes into something else. 5 years later, his situation is far, far, far better than he ever dreamed his situation would be. But it's only because he went through the tough times first. So later on, a person realizes why he needed what came then. So we make the bracha Sha'asa li kol tzarki, because I make it in the past tense. I only see now that tzara that happened 5 years ago was asa li kol tzarki, that was also what I needed. But I often only see it in the past tense. I don't see it in the present tense. So when we look at situations and we wonder, They seem harsh. They seem hard. And yet we know the Ribbono Shel Olam is an Avar Rachaman. He's a merciful Father, and that He loves us. How do we look at it? We have to realize that this is Asali Kal Tzarki. For whatever reason, this is what is needed at this time. And we have to try and look at it through that perspective. The people who come to my shir have heard the story before, but there's a story I always say over. When years ago, somebody borrowed a car from me, and he smacked up my car. He totaled my car. And the next morning, I went to my Rebbe, Reuben Feinstein, Soll sein gesund, and I told him, I said, I don't know what the Ribbono Shel Olam wants from me, but last night somebody totaled my car. And Reuben looked at me and he said, you want to know what? You're acting like the Ribbono Shel Olam gave you an einish? Do you need the car now? Are you missing it this minute? I said, no, I have a second car. He said, so what's the einish? There's no einish. The Ribbono Shel Olam's not being hard on you. He says, the Ribbono Shel Olam wants you to get a new car. The Ribbono Shel Olam's doing you a favor. He wants you to get a new car. In the end, I got a new car. It was nicer than the other one. So there's always, when we look at a situation, we have to see that it's coming from love, and we have to see the positive in it. I will put out to you that there is rachamim that you can actually see in the tzara. And again, chas v'chalila, I'm not minimizing anybody's suffering, but let me give you an example. Somebody who I had a very close personal relationship passed away from this virus. Now, I don't know his exact age, but he was over 90. He was over 90, but he was a very young 90. He was over 90, but he was vibrant and he was well, and he was mentally well, he was physically well, and the virus took him in a very short time. And it's sad, and it's a tzara. And even if a person is over 90, we don't want to lose a loved one. But at the same time, when I heard about it, I commented to somebody else who knew him. Could you have imagined him lingering on in a dreaded disease? Like we see Nebuch Le'aleinu, somebody who has cancer and goes through terrible treatments, debilitating treatments, and they linger and they suffer. Could you have seen him going through that? That would have been a suffering for him worse than anything. Instead, the Ribbono Shel Olam took him in several days. The Ribbono Shel Olam took him really without, from what I understand, without much suffering. And okay, so there's a rachmanus within the tzara. There's rachmanus that we can see as well. So everything that's being done here is being done by an Av HaRachamim. And I think that's the first paradigm shift that we have to have. The first change in perspective that we have to have is that we have to look at this through those eyes. Now, another interesting question that comes up. The timing of this affair is very interesting. At least here in New York, in the New York area, but I think in Eretz Yisrael as well, and in other places where there are large Yiddish communities, this really hit us. It began to hit us at around Purim time, and it peaked at around Pesach time. And now we're in the Yemei HaSfira, and Baruch Hashem, it looks like it's slowing down, heading to Kabbalas HaTorah. And that, like everything else, nothing is coincidental here. And the timing seems to be very, very interesting. Why did the Ribbono Shel Olam choose that timing? And again, we could only guess. We could only look and see what our Gashmiistic eyes can see. We can't ascribe motives to the Ribbono Shel Olam. The Ribbono Shel Olam's thought processes are way beyond us. But again, we're allowed to look at it and we could learn what we can learn. The Ribbono Shel Olam did this in Yemei HaSimcha. He did this during a time period when we are usually misameach, we're usually happy. And this definitely put a dent in our simcha. So why did the Ribbono Shel Olam want to dent our simcha? So I think the first question that I want to ask is, are we misameach? And what do I mean? They say over from the Klausenberger Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, that when he was in the camps, and he was suffering and he was being beaten, he would be muttering under his breath the pasuk in the Teichacha, Kach asa shelo yavadata asa Hashem Elokecha b'simcha me'rov kol, that this is happening because we didn't serve Hashem out of simcha. Are we misameach? Do we have simcha from everything that the Ribbono Shel Olam gives us? Do we have simcha from the fact that the Ribbono Shel Olam made us a yid? Do we say in the morning, we make a bracha, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, that we thank the Ribbono Shel Olam and we praise the Ribbono Shel Olam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, that you chose us from all the nations and you gave us a Torah Kedosha? Are we misameach? Even simpler, every morning when we wake up, Moidani lefanecha, shechzarta bi nishmasi b'chem l'rabba. We thank the Ribbono Shel Olam, he gave us back a neshama. Now from this disease, we know what it means to thank the Ribbono Shel Olam for every breath that we take. But the Ribbono Shel Olam gives us so much more than that. Look at the prosperity that we have. Look at everything good that the Ribbono Shel Olam does for us. Are we misameach? Are we full of simcha? And do we serve Hashem with simcha? Do we come to shul with a simcha? That Baruch Hashem, we could come and we could put on tefillin and we can daven and we could speak to the Ribbono Shel Olam 3 times a day and we could ask Borei Olam for everything that we need. And he gives us air and he gives us food and he gives us drink and he gives us a house and he gives us family. Everything, all the hatava that the Ribbono Shel Olam does for us. Are we misameach? When it comes to Yom Tov, and we say on Yom Tov, Mayadim l'simcha, chagim uzmanim l'sasayin, do we rejoice? When it comes to Purim, why are we misameach on Purim? Are we misameach on Purim because we're molei simcha of what the Ribbono Shel Olam did for us? Is that the root cause of our simcha? Do we wake up in the morning on Purim morning and say, we're going to read the Megillah. Look what the Ribbono Shel Olam did for us. Look how he saved us. Look how he hung Haman up on a tree. Look how he turned everything upside down for us. Is that the root of our simcha? Or is the root of our simcha that it's a fun day? We make a thematic shalach manos. We dress up and we clown around and we drink. That's not the simcha that the Borei Olam wants us to have. He wants us to have the simcha shel mitzvah. But even like I said before, just the simcha of everything that the Ribbono Shel Olam does for us, day in, day out, do we have that simcha? And maybe the Ribbono Shel Olam dampened our simcha because the Ribbono Shel Olam says you don't have the simcha that I want you to have. The simcha sachayim of a yid. The Chovos HaLevavos says again, I'll quote again. The Chovos HaLevavos says somebody who has emunah and betachim is molei simcha. He has no daigas. He has no worries. I'll never forget. We made a simcha and we made an afraf. I think it was the afraf. Maybe it was Shabbos Sheva brachas. We made Shabbos Sheva brachas, so we made the Suda in the yeshiva. And at that point, my youngest daughter was a baby. And my son was holding the baby in his arms, and he walked by the Mizrachvant, and he walked by Reb Ruvain. And Reb Ruvain looked at my son, and he asked him, he said, you're holding the baby. How far is it from the baby to the floor? So my son looked at him and said, I don't know, it's got to be 4 feet. So he said, yeah, what would happen if chas v'shalom you dropped the baby? So my son thought that Reb Ruvain is telling him, you're not holding the baby well. So he said, don't worry, I'm holding him. So Reb Ruvain said, no, that's not my point. But if you chas v'chalila drop the baby will get hurt, right? So he said, yeah, of course. She's only a little baby. So Reb Ruvain said, look at her face. Does she look like she has a worry in the world? No, she's perfectly content. Like they say, sleeping like a baby. Not a care in the world. Reb Ruvain said that's the way every one of us are supposed to be able to go through life. We're supposed to be able to say the Ribbono Shel Olam is holding us. I don't have a worry in the world. Not a worry in the world. The Rabbeinu Shalom is holding me. If the Rabbeinu Shalom is holding me, what am I worried about? So if you live like that, if you have no daigas, if you have no worries, because the Rabbeinu Shalom is taking care of you, you're moli simcha. You're full of simcha. Do we have this kind of simcha? The Rabbeinu Shalom wants us to have simcha. But do you have the simcha that you're supposed to have? Do you have the simcha sachayim that comes from Amunah and B'tachim? Do you have the simcha because you're makir tov to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Because you're full of gratitude to the Rabbeinu Shalom for everything that the Rabbeinu Shalom does for you day in, day out? That's the simcha that the Rabbeinu Shalom wants us to have. And maybe that's something that we need to learn. We need to ask, why did the Rabbeinu Shalom dampen our simcha? He dampened our simcha because we don't have the simcha that we should have. That's one thought. Another thought, Pesach. What do we celebrate on Pesach? What we celebrate on Pesach is the concept that the Rabbeinu Shalom has complete control and complete mastery over everything that happens in the universe. Like we say in the Ani Mamins, Ani Mamin, I believe, Shahabayre Yisparach Shemai, that the Creator, his name should be blessed, Hu Bayre Umanhig. The Rabbeinu Shalom is the Creator and also the Manhig, the one who controls and runs everything. Umanhig L'chol HaBeruim. The Rabbeinu Shalom controls every bria, every creation. That means that molecular virus that's running around through the air, every one of those viruses is thoroughly controlled by Barei Olam. V'hu levadai asa, he alone made, the Oisen will make v'yaser l'chol abruim. Everything that happens by Barei Olam. Nothing else happens in any other way. And that's the lesson, that's the ultimate lesson of Pesach. That's what we're supposed to be realizing on Pesach. That's what we're supposed to be celebrating on Pesach. On our Pesach this year, when we knew that this virus is running around, did we have that in mind? Do we have that in mind? That we're thoroughly and completely in the hands of Barei Olam. Doesn't matter, and again, don't take me wrong here. I'm not saying don't wear masks. I'm not saying don't take precautions. Everybody, you're mechuyev to take the precautions that are normal precautions that you're supposed to take. But it's not the mask, and it's not the hand washing, and it's not the medical advice, and it's not the doctor's decisions. Indeed, we're seeing now that a lot of the doctor's decisions were bad ones. I'm not blaming them. They based the decisions on standard protocols, on everything that they know. But what you don't know, you don't know. When you're faced with a new situation that you never saw before, a lot of your decisions are not going to be right ones. But everything ultimately is controlled by Barei Olam, not by anything else. The Rabbeinu Shalom wants us to take that lesson from Pesach. And that's maybe another reason why the Rabbeinu Shalom did it now. Because the Rabbeinu Shalom is saying to us, you don't have to worry as much as you're worrying. Don't worry. What's Pesach? Shepasach al Batei Yisrael. I jumped over your houses. I went to the other houses. Your houses I'll jump over. You have Amunah and B'tachim. You have trust in the Rabbeinu Shalom. You have your priorities straight. You dedicate yourself to the Torah HaKadosha. The Rabbeinu Shalom can jump over you. The Rabbeinu Shalom can jump over your house. The virus doesn't have to go to you. The virus can go somewhere else. So the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us, in a way, the refuah before the Makkah. The Rabbeinu Shalom made the Makkah at a time when this lesson is front and central in our minds. And it's a lesson that we have to fix in our minds. We have to repeat it every day. It's like the Mesilas Yesharim says. These things don't go into our brains automatically without us learning them and studying them and thinking about them. We have to think about these things. We have to spend time talking about them. We have to say to ourselves, you listen to the news and you hear the statistics and everything else, and you have to say to yourself, fine and good, but everything is controlled by Barei Olam. The Rabbeinu Shalom can make the whole thing go away tomorrow. The Rabbeinu Shalom can make the whole thing go away tonight. The statistics don't mean anything. It all doesn't mean anything. And when you mispal, when you daven, you should daven that it should go away now, and not another single person should get sick. And anybody who needs a refuah, the Rebbeinu Shalom is the Beirei Refuahs. The refuah could come now, right now. The breakthrough could come, and the whole thing is over. Tomorrow's news are it's gone. That's all in the hands of the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom is a Kol Yachol. The Rebbeinu Shalom could do that. The Rebbeinu Shalom could do anything. But you have to know that, trust that, and believe that. And that's what we should be. That's what we should be asking for, and that's what we should be looking for. I think, in a way, what the Rebbeinu Shalom is doing is, I always say that in today's day and age, and I think, again, this is a lead up to the Geula Shlema, the Rebbeinu Shalom is not allowing Frumkeit to run on automatic. Frumkeit doesn't work on automatic anymore. Nowadays, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants thinking people. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants people that are doing things for reasons, not Mrs. Anashim Ulumada, not because this is the way they grew up. I think the Rebbeinu Shalom is no longer looking for people who just put on tefillin every morning at 8 o'clock because they're used to davening at an 8 o'clock minyan. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants people who put on tefillin because they're being oived the Rebbeinu Shalom and because they realize that they're doing the mitzvahs habayre. The Rebbeinu Shalom here is challenging a lot of our core beliefs. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is asking us, do you really believe the things that you profess to believe? Think about them. Think about them and work on them. And make sure that you really believe them and make sure that you really have them in your mind. Now, another question that comes up. The Rebbeinu Shalom did something here that's also unprecedented. Our shuls are closed. We can't just go to davening. Even backyard minyanim, not so simple. Probably mostly everybody is davening b'yechidus. I want to go to shul. Can't go to shul. What does that say? What does that tell us? Again, I think we have to ask ourselves. I'll never forget, many, many years ago, soon after I got married, it was the first year of our marriage, I came down with mono. I came down with a bad case of mononucleosis. And like happens to some people, even when I got over the intense phase of the virus, it had effects that lingered for quite a while. And I had no koyach. I had no koyach whatsoever. I was like a wrung out dish towel. And I remember wanting to learn and not being able to. I took out a sefer and I couldn't learn. The mind just wasn't working. I just didn't have the koyach to be able to learn. Come, I was able to take out a Tanakh and just read Tanakh. But I remember crying that I want to learn and I can't learn. And then I remember thinking to myself, there's a powerful lesson here. There's a very powerful lesson here. Do you really want to do those mitzvahs? Or do you just take for granted that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you the opportunity? Yeah, going to shul, what's the big deal? Davening with a minyan, what's the big deal? Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, what's the big deal? Baruch Hu, what's the big deal? Kedusha, what's the big deal? Kedusha today, Kedusha tomorrow. If I miss Tefillah B'tzibur today, I'll get Tefillah B'tzibur tomorrow. If I miss Kriyas HaTorah today, I'll get Kriyas HaTorah next week. If I miss an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah because I stepped out of shul for a minute and I was schmoozing with my friend, what's the big deal? Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbahs are a dime a dozen. No, they're not. No, they're not. You think you could just take for granted the ability to be Mekayim mitzvahs? You think you could just take for granted the ability to make an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah? The Rebbeinu Shalom gave you a schus that you can make an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave you a schus that you could say Kedusha, like the Malachim, like the Malachim at Jares. You're just going to take it for granted? Kedusha, big deal? I once asked a question to Rav David Feinstein, Zol Zayin Gesund. I asked him what made his father, Uncle Gabe maybe will remember, what made Rav Moshe Zechat Tzadik Kadosh Levracha, what made him such a happy person? He always had a beaming smile. Yet, this was the man that every terrible tzara was brought to his desk. Everybody was coming to him and crying to him with all of their tzaras. It's enough to break a person. What made him? What kept him going? What kept him so happy? Reb David told me that he asked his father this question. And the Rishiv Zatzal told him, in Yiddish he said it, he said, the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Beirei Kol Elamim, will Moshe Feinstein stickel avoda. Said, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants my service. He wants my avoda. And I shouldn't be happy? Of course I'm happy. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants my service. What an honor that is. Imagine somebody gets an honor. The president needs you. From 350 million Americans, he needs you. It's an honor. The Rebbeinu Shalom, creator, the Beirei Kol Elamim, he wants my service. What? How could you not be happy? But you can't take it for granted. You take for granted the ability to go to shul and say Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. You take for granted the ability to go to shul and daven with a minyan. It's a gift. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave you a gift that you could go talk to him 3 times a day and you could ask him for whatever you need. You can't just take that gift for granted. Now we can't take it for granted anymore. Now you see how the Rebbeinu Shalom could take it away. And you see what it means not to have it. Now you have greater appreciation. Now you go back to a minyan. You're going to shul. Everybody, wherever you are, when your shul reopens, be very careful the first time you walk back into that shul. If you walk back into that shul the same way you walked into the shul before COVID-19, something's wrong. You cannot walk back into the shul the same way after this is over as you did before. You got to walk into shul differently. You have to walk back into shul with a heightened appreciation of what shul means. You have to walk back into shul with a heightened appreciation of what it means to daven b'tzibur. You have to walk back into a shul with a heightened appreciation of what it means to say Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. What the Gemara says about Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, how the Rebbeinu Shalom reacts to Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. When we say Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, the Rebbeinu Shalom reacts in Shamayim, and he mourns over the Churban, and he longs to bring back the Beis Hamikdash. You think the Rebbeinu Shalom reacts to Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah in that way when it's a cold Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah? When it's an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah that's taken for granted, when it's an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah where your mind is half on your cell phone, where it's an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah where you're worrying why davening is taking so long? But if it's an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah with an appreciation of what an Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah is, of what a schus it is to come say Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, then the Rebbeinu Shalom quells in Shemayim when he hears Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. So this is something you want to know why the Rebbeinu Shalom is closing shul. Not because the Rebbeinu Shalom, one person told me, he says, it's terrible. It's just like the Navi says in Yeshaya. In Yeshaya, the Navi says, Remois Chatzerai. I didn't ask for you to come trample. The Rebbeinu Shalom uses, that's the lashon that the Navi uses in Yeshaya. The Navi says, oh, you come into my Beis Hamikdash, Remois Chatzerai. You trample my chutzah, you trample my courtyard. I don't want you here. I'm going to throw you out. So this guy had a very negative outlook. He said the Rebbeinu Shalom is throwing me out of shul. He doesn't want me in shul. I choose to look at it the other way. I think the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling us how much he wants us in shul. But the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling us, I want you in shul, but I want you to know why you're coming to shul. And I want you to appreciate shul. I want you to appreciate why you're coming here. I want you to honor it. I want you to appreciate it. I want you to love it. I want you to look forward to it. We know the Chazal tell us that when we come up to Shamayim, one of the questions that they're going to ask us is, Tzipisa liyeshua. Did you look forward to the Geula? did you look forward to Yeshua? Everybody says, boy, that's an easy one. The other questions that they ask, those are hard. They're going to ask me, Kavata itum l'Torah? Did you set times to learn Torah? Oh, I don't know. I missed the Daf Yomi every now and then. The Rav Moshe Zecher Tzaddik L'Vrach has a 14-page tshuva on exactly what it means to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Can I say 100% yes? Kavata itum l'Torah? It's a tough one. They're going to ask me, Nasasa v'nasata be'emunah. Did you do business honestly? Well, that's also, it's a little bit rough. I'm not sure. Was I so careful over every nickel? But see, peacefully, Yeshua, who doesn't want Mashiach to come? Every one of us. Every time I speak, I end it off. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Mashiach Tzidkenu b'meher v'yamein. So, and to say there, I say L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. So that seems to be an easy one. See, peacefully, Yeshua. That's really easy. Of course, I would see peacefully, Yeshua. Rabbi say it's not so easy. It's not so easy. I was trying to remember the old joke before I started to share. I couldn't remember the joke about the farmer and his wife. I don't remember exactly how the joke goes, but the gist of the joke was that the farmer wants Mashiach to come. Why does he want Mashiach to come? Because he has tsaros. The cow's not giving enough milk, and the landlord of the land is charging him too much rent, and this is too expensive, and this is too hard, and when Mashiach comes, everything will be easy. So he's tzipisa Yeshua because he wants everything to be easy. Rabbi said, that's not what it means, tzipisa Yeshua. When they ask you in Shemaim, tzipisa Yeshua, were you looking forward to the Yeshua? It's not, were you looking forward for Mashiach to come and to solve all of your personal problems? Everybody looks very forward to a magic pill or to a magic wand that will solve all of his personal problems. There's no great novelty in that. There's no great schus in that. That's not what it means. What it means is tzipisa Yeshua. Did you look forward to the day Mashiach comes and builds Bayis Shlishi, and you're going to go there, it's Yisrael, and you're going to live al pi the Torah HaKdosha. You're going to live according to the Torah HaKdosha, according to all Taryag mitzvahs. And that means also, by the way, that when you're over a lav, when you transgress a negative prohibition that fulfills all the requirements, and there were witnesses to it, that Beis Din is going to take you and they're going to give you malchus. They're going to give you 40 lashes. So it's not anymore that you're just going to do an aver and sweep it under the rug and bring it out Erev Yom Kippur and klap al chet. No, there's going to be a Beis Din. And Beis Din is going to enforce the halacha. It's not optional. And there's going to be tum and tara. And you're going to have to live according to all of the strictures. There's not going to be any more. And there are karbanos that you're going to have to bring. And there are going to be obligations that you have that you don't even realize right now. But you're going to be living al pi the Torah HaKdosha, and you're going to have the opportunity to have dveikus, to have a connection to the Borei Olamim, to your Creator. You're going to have the ability to be a Yid, to be a Mamleches Kaihanim V'Goy Kodesh. You're going to have the ability to live the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to live and to fulfill the purpose of this world. That's tzipisa Yeshua. Tzipisa Yeshua is that I look forward to the Yeshua. I look forward to Mashiach coming because I want to be an Oved Hashem, because I have Avas Hashem, because I love the Rebbeinu Shalom, and I want to live the way He wants me to live. That's what tzipisa Yeshua means. What the Rebbeinu Shalom wants is that we come to Shul and we look forward to being Oved Hashem. We come to Shul, we have an appreciation for davening. We come to Shul, we have an appreciation of what it means to speak to Him like a child to a father. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is taking a highlighter and he's putting a highlighter on that. He's closing the shuls because he wants to open them. It's like a restaurant, L'havdil Alef Alfei Havdalos, that closes and says, bear with us during our renovation. We're closing because we want to reopen far better than we were before. The Rebbeinu Shalom is closing the shuls because he wants to make a grand reopening. And he wants us to come in and pour out our hearts to him. And he wants to answer. He wants to listen, and he wants to answer every one of those tefillas. That's why he's closing the shuls. The Rambam, it's a beautiful Rambam. So we're talking about Simcha, and we're talking about Avas Hashem. The Rambam says in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, V'hayach hi haderech la'ahavasai v'yirasai. How does somebody come to love Hashem? You know, it's very interesting. We talk about Yiras Shamayim. What's Yiras Shamayim? Fear of heaven. How often do we talk about Avas Hashem, the love of Hashem? Why are we always talking about Yirah? You know, I like to say that Jews like negativity. I'll tell you what I mean. Every article is about a tragedy. Every book is a sad story. Everything is sad about the Holocaust. Everything is, why? Why is everything negative? Why don't we get some positivity in there? Why don't we get some positive energy in there? We talk about Yiras Shamayim, fear. How about Avas Hashem, love of Hashem? You know, we say Kriya Shema, we have a mitzvah daraisa to say Kriya Shema twice a day. What do we speak about in Kriya Shema? Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. You should love Hashem, your God. We don't say V'yaresa Hashem Elokecha, fear your God. We say Ve'ahavta, love. So we have to say twice every day, we have to speak about Avas Hashem, about loving Hashem. So the Rambam says over here, what's the path? What's the road? What's the way to bring yourself to loving Hashem and to fearing Hashem? But this is a fear, this is a yiras haroimamus, it's an awe. It's not a fear as in terror. It's not what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want us to be afraid of him. It's like I said in the beginning, the Rebbeinu Shalom is not looking for us to have a fearful relationship where he's a punisher and an avenger and a tough guy. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to have a love-based relationship, like a father and a son. That's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. Does a son have a fear of a father? Yes, there is a certain fear. I know Tati, I know Daddy is going to look out what I'm doing, and I know Daddy is going to punish me if I do the wrong thing. But why? Because he loves me. That's why. So the Rebbeinu Shalom wants a yira, but it's a yira that's born from Ava. So the Rambam says, how do we get there? The Rambam says, when a time will come when a person thinks and delves into and pays attention to everything that the Rebbeinu Shalom does, Uberua of Haniflayim Hagadolim, and all of the Rebbeinu Shalom's great and wondrous creations, the Yira Mehen Chachmasai She'ein La Erech V'Lei Kates, and he sees the Rebbeinu Shalom's wisdom, the Rebbeinu Shalom's wisdom and his power, which is boundless. Miyad hu ohev u'mishabeach. Immediately he will love the Rebbeinu Shalom, praise him, u'mifire and glorify him, u'misava taiva gedola leida Hashem agadol, and he'll have a tremendous desire to become more knowledgeable and more connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom. You have to look in your life. I say this all the time. Every single one of us, I don't care who you are, if you pay attention and you look into your life and see all of the hatava that the Rebbeinu Shalom does for you every day, all of the good that the Rebbeinu Shalom does for you on a constant basis, and then walk outside in the street and look at the world that the Rebbeinu Shalom has created. Take a look at one tree, just one tree. Pick a leaf off the tree and ask yourself, where did it come from? How does it work? Who made it? Why? Look at all of the wonders of the Rebbeinu Shalom and all of the goodness of the Rebbeinu Shalom. How could you not love him? Whatever you have in your life, whatever you have, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it for you. And the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to you even though very often you don't even acknowledge it. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to you anyway. You have a family that you love. You enjoy your family. You have a spouse that you love. You have children that you love. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? The Rebbeinu Shalom granted it to you. You have happiness in your life? From what? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom granted it to you. How could you not love him? How could you not be flooded with love for him? The answer is if you don't think about it. If you don't think about it, then it doesn't occur to you. Like the Ramchal says in Mesilas Yesharim, Milsa Delay Rama Delay. I forgot the words. Milsa Delay Rama Inish Lava Daite. Something that a person doesn't put on his mind, he doesn't think about it. If you don't spend time, Milsa Delay Ramya Ale de Inish. Something that a person doesn't place in his mind, Lava Daite. It won't be on his mind. He won't think about it. You could pass by 100 trees. If you don't ask yourself the question, if you don't take a leaf off the tree and look at it and wonder, how does the water get from the ground up into the branches and up into the leaf? If you don't think about it, you won't realize that this is a wondrous creation of the Ribbono Shel Olam. You'll walk by a million trees and never realize it. If you talk to your child and you're filled with love for your child, and you don't then think about it and say, why was I zeicha to this? The Ribbono Shel Olam gave me this. If you don't think about it, then you'll never acknowledge that it's a gift from Barei Olam and that you should love him for it. We need to think into these things. We're all stuck at home now, even though a lot of us have less time than we normally do because everybody else is stuck at home also, and because our lives are turned upside down. But definitely it's a time for introspection. It's a time where we have to pay attention and we have to think. That's what the Ribbono Shel Olam is crying out to us. The Ribbono Shel Olam is telling us, go home and think. There's one last thing. The time is already getting long, but there's one more thing that I want to tackle before we go. Besides the shuls, the Ribbono Shel Olam also closed the yeshivas. And the Ribbono Shel Olam also closed down the shiurim. Now, Baruch Hashem, people are learning like anything. There's online learning going on. There's phone learning going on. There's a lot of people that are learning more than they ever learned before because they can't work. So they're learning. They're taking the opportunity to learn. But still in all, the Ribbono Shel Olam closed the yeshivas. He closed the yeshivas gedolos. He closed the yeshivas ktanos. He closed the batei midrashim. He closed down the live shiurim. And I think there's a basic question that we need to ask. And that is what our approach to Torah learning is. When we learn Torah, what do? Are we mevatel ourselves to the Torah? Or do we want to take the Torah on our terms? Those are two very different things. When somebody is mevatel himself to the Torah, he nullifies himself to the Torah. What that means is that he learns Torah with an eye and a perspective of what does the Torah want from me? What is the Torah teaching me? What does the Torah strive to make me? What can I learn from the Torah? How do I bend my will to the will of the Torah? Aseh ritzaynai kirtzayncha, the Mishnah Nava says. Make the Ribbono Shel Olam's will your will. But that means that you bend your will to the Ribbono Shel Olam's will. That's what our approach to Torah is supposed to be. When we open up that Gemara to learn Daf Yomi, we're supposed to open up and look in the eternal pages of Shas, in the wisdom of the Torah, and the Torah is supposed to change us. We're supposed to look at that daf and say, how do I change today because of what I learned on that daf? I am prepared to change myself in the face of the Torah, as opposed to learning Torah where I am what I am, and I'm reading the Torah to see what the Torah is. But the Torah is not going to change what I am. I am what I am. I'm very happy with what I am, thank you. There's wisdom in the Torah, and I might learn the Torah, and I might see something interesting in the daf, and I might speak by a Sheva Brachas next week, and maybe I'll have something nice to say by the Sheva Brachas. And certainly there's a lot of things that I see in there when I learn the Torah that I like, and that I identify with, and that I'm willing to quote, And then I'm willing to say, yes, I do that, just like it says in the Torah. But then there are things that I see in the Torah, and okay, listen, there's a lot of Blätter in Shas. There's over 2,000. I don't have to pay attention to every single one of them. This one I could gloss over a little bit. Doesn't work that way. When we learn Torah, we're learning Das Elyon. We're learning the wisdom of Barei Olam. We're learning how the Ribbono Shel Olam wants us to live. We're studying the instruction booklet for ourselves and for the world. And we have to be mevatel ourselves to the Torah. We have to nullify our own will to the Torah so that when we learn Torah, we're changing ourselves. Baruch Hashem, there's so much Torah learning going on. There's more Torah learning, I'm not going to say than ever. I don't think that's true. But there's more Torah learning. I remember by the Siyum HaShas, not this past one, the one before that, when they were talking about Daf Yomi back in Europe, when in the shul they had one Shas, and people had to sign up for shifts when they could get to use the Gemara. And 6 people stood around the bima trying to learn for one Gemara, and one guy learned from it upside down. Now who goes to a shul with his one Shas? When I was a kid and I went to shul in Borough Park, the minyan that I davened in, I remember when I got older and I went to yeshiva, it bothered me that when I came into daven, if I wanted to look up a Gemara, there wasn't a complete Shas there. So I had to go around shul and I had to scrounge one volume from this shelf and one volume from that room and one volume from that room. And I put together a Shas in the bookcase that was near the table that I davened by. And I was so happy. Baruch Hashem, I have a Shas near where I davened. And then wouldn't you know it, I came back 2 weeks later and half the volumes were missing. And then I found out that there was somebody who was deliberately scattering them around the shul. So I went over them and I asked him, what on earth are you doing? I finally got one Shas together. Why are you scattering the Shas all around the shul? So he looked at me with a straight face and he said, look what you did. You took all the Gemaras and you put them in one place. So now everybody could only learn over here. What happens if there's somebody in that room and he wants to learn in that room? He doesn't have a Gemara. So now who would go to a shul where there isn't a Shas 6 feet away? Now there's Shasim all over the place. But again, the Ribbono Shel Olam wants, he's saying it's not enough. I need you to take it to the next step. You see, what we should be seeing and what we need to see, if we're seeing an explosion in Torah learning, I must pause for a second. I have to quote my Rebbe, my Manal from Yeshiva Tana, Rabbi Elias Schwartz, the Manal of Torah Semes Kamenetz in Borough Park. He had a slogan. He used to say, I'm not looking to make 24-hour Torah learning Jews. I'm looking to make 24-hour Torah living Jews. If we see an explosion in Torah learning, then we need to see commensurate with that an explosion of Torah living. If so many more people are going to Daf Yomi, then all of those people have to be changed by the Daf. If they're not being changed by the Daf, then the approach to the Torah learning is lacking. We're not being mevatel ourselves to the Torah. Now, mind you, I'm not preaching. I'm talking to me. Every one of these, if I mention any faults, I have every one of them. I'm not coming to, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of what I can see when I look at myself. We have to learn Torah. We have to be mevatel ourselves to the Torah so that we're learning Torah with an eye that we want the Torah to change us. We want to mold ourselves in the eyes, in the ways of the Creator. We want to mold ourselves to the designs of the Torah so that we become Torah living Jews. And again, I say, the Ribbono Shel Olam is closing the Batei Midrashim because he wants a grand reopening of the Batei Midrashim. Not, I don't want you here, go out. No, I want you here. But it's time to take it to the next level. Have a heightened appreciation. Think into it. Think into what you're doing. Okay? I'm giving you just some of what I see. There are other things that we could talk about. I would say maybe we'll continue next week, but I hope that by next week, this should be a distant memory. We should be back in the shuls. We should be back in the Bate Midrashim. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshuas and Refuas to everybody who needs them. And I want to stress, like I keep on saying at the end of every shir, when we're mispal, when we daven, first of all, Rav Moshe used to say that when somebody has a financial need, let's say somebody needs a new car, and there's money for a new car, even for a new used car. It's going to cost them $10,000 for a used car. Rav Moshe used to say, if you're making a simcha, daven for it when you're making a simcha. Why? Because Rav Moshe said, when you're making a simcha, the Rebbeinu Shalom has to give you extra resources anyway. And he's happy to give it. So sneak it in on the pile. You say, the kids need suits, the kid needs shoes, the collar needs a shaitel, the wife needs a shaitel, I also need a car. Sneak in the paper for the car in the pile, and the Rebbeinu Shalom will give it to you. When the Rebbeinu Shalom is sending bracha, the Rebbeinu Shalom will send bracha. So we're being mispal. Don't just be mispal for the person that you know that is sick with this virus. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send refuahs to everybody who needs a refuah. There's plenty of people out there who need refuahs that COVID-19 is not what they're busy with. They have other diseases, other sicknesses. There are plenty of people who need Yeshuas that have nothing to do with COVID-19. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send them Yeshuas. There are plenty of people who need Parnasa. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send them Parnasa. But not just that. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Mashiach Tzidkenu. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring us to Yerushalayim. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring us not just back to our local Aguda or our local Young Israel or our local Shtibel. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring us back to the Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring us to the Azaru. We should be to bring a carbon. We should know what it means to bring a carbon oila. To come to the Rebbeinu Shalom and bring a carbon and say, I want to have dveikus. I want to be attached to the Rebbeinu Shalom. I want to know what it means to have a true kapara, to really do tshuva, and to really get a kapara on a chait that I did because I brought a carbon. To come to a Beis HaMikdash and see the nisim of the Beis HaMikdash, to see the smoke going up from the Mizbeach and not moving in the wind, to see the lechem apanim that's fresh from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos, to see how the Rebbeinu Shalom loves us with all the nisim that he does for us, to see what it means to really live a Torah life. That's what we should be mispal for. Don't be mispal for half measures. Be mispal for the whole bag. I want the whole thing. I don't just want half of it. I'm coming to the Rebbeinu Shalom and I'm asking him, I want the whole thing. I don't want just a little bit. I want the whole thing. That's what we should be mispal for. And the Rebbeinu Shalom could do it. The Rebbeinu Shalom could do it now. It doesn't have to take a week. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be a month. It does not just before Shavuos. It can be now, today, tonight. That's what we should be mispal for. We should all be zeicher to see it. Again, the Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshuas and Refuahs. Thank you so much for joining me for the learning of Torah. I hope I'm giving you words that come from my heart. I hope it means something. I hope that my words are agreeable. Everybody should be well. Thank you so much. Edie, Gabe, it's wonderful to see you.
Good to you.
And Deborah, you too. I see you there in the corner.
Yashika.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
On the mark. Yashika. All those great things about Reb Moshe. You see why he was so optimistic. You see why he was so beloved.
That's it.
Those great things. That's so beautiful.
Marsha, how's Mendel? You're muted. You got to turn your sound on. Oh, there you go. My best to Mendel.
Miriam Zalman here.
Oh, Miriam Zalman. I don't see your video, but I see your name.
Yeah, thank you.
But Zalman, I get to see you on Facebook all the time.
Yes.
I'm just afraid you're going to kick me out of the screen.
That was great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's good to see you.
Yashika.
Be well.
Thank you.
Susan, is that you?
Yes.
Ah, I see you on Facebook every now and then also.
Very good. Are you going to be next week?
Yeah, Mirz Hashem. Yes. Yes.
Good night.
Be well.
Okay, thanks.
I ended
How was that? It's good? Yeah? It's nice to have you there.
Yeah, nice to be there.
That's all right. Zoom.
Did you not eat supper tonight, Mary?
What?
You didn't eat supper?
I forgot about supper. And
Oh.
then you know it's my in the middle
Oh,
of
what?
this,
Isn't
I
it under
like,
Facebook?
What am I
supper,
doing?
salad,
Hello, Facebook. I forgot to turn you off.
There's lasagna.
Thank you for joining me.
Mary, there's lasagna.
Do you want me to
No
run
way to
with your
crop
tea?
it, Daddy.
Daddy,
This has to turn off.
Daddy,
do you
no
want
way
me
to
to warm
crop
up your
it.
tea? It's okay.
Daddy forgot to turn off his Facebook.
I forgot to turn off Facebook.